You are making the world a better place by listening to the Joy of Living podcast. This is your guide to achieving a more purposeful, powerful, and positive life. Join Barry Shore in unlocking the best version of you and becoming happier, healthier, and wealthier. And now, here's your ambassador of joy, Barry Shore.
Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved immortal beings, and good-looking people. Remember, you're good-looking because you're always looking for and finding the good. You found good in abundance because you tuned in consciously and conscientiously to the Joy of Living. I'm your humble host, Barry Shore. And notice I didn't say the joy of living, so the Joy of Living. And with your humble host, Barry Shore, the ambassador of joy. Again, notice I didn't say the ambassador of joy. The ambassador of joy, because you know in this show, we discuss the three fundamentals of life, and these three fundamentals will enable you to be happier, healthier, and wealthier. Now, the best news is that you tuned in for one reason and one reason only. Best reason in the whole world, because you care the most in the entire world about you. Y-O-U. That's right, because when you become the best you make the world a better place. You build more bridges of harmony, create more joy, happiness, peace, and love in the world. And we're going to talk about that in depth. You're about to meet a man who has brought to the world one of the greatest words, redemption. We're going to learn all about that in just a little bit. So as I said, thank God right now you are joined by approximately 519,822 people around the world. And I am just so humbled and honored that you're always urging your family and friends to join and listen to the podcast because, again, they're designed for you to be happier, healthier, and wealthier. So right now, there's another 25,000 people. By the time we bring on wonderful Christopher, there'll be about 528,000 people around the world listening. And we urge you to share this with 5 people. You want to share it with 50 or 100? Great. 5 people. That's all. Make sure you share this with 5 people and urge them to listen and to take action, because that way we can touch millions of people and bring more joy, happiness, peace, and love. Now, the 3 fundamentals of life are, number 1, life. Your life has purpose. And when you lead a purpose-driven life, number 2 happens. You go mad. You make a difference. And you're going to learn all about this today, because Christopher is going to crystallize for us one of the people who changed the world. He made a difference. And you're going to love the story and the song, and you're going to just be so deeply involved. It's going to make a difference for you and everybody that you know. Remember to share this. So the 3 fundamentals are purpose, you go mad, and number 3 is to unlock the power and the secrets of everyday words and terms. Simple example, this show is carried over the internet. People all around the world, and I mean all around the world, listening to this. And now if you ask anybody, what does the www stand for? Let's say it has to do with the internet. Now, factually speaking, they are correct. However, in our world, the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, WWW stands for what a wonderful world. And what is a word, right? WHETA. Big tip of the hat. A big thank you to Louis Armstrong, Satchmo, for enabling that song to go viral and touch not just tens of millions, 100 millions, but billions of people around the planet. Whenever you hear the opening bars of what a wonderful world, what do you do right away? You can't help it. You smile. Now, smile is one of the most important words you're going to internalize, utilize, and leverage in your life, because smile stands for seeing miracles in life every day. Seeing miracles in life every day. Now, I'm going to tell you a quick story. It's about me. Imagine, if you can, I'm standing up in the morning, completely healthy and hearty, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. In the evening, I'm in the hospital, totally, completely paralyzed from my neck down. And it wasn't from a spinal injury. It wasn't an automobile accident. It was a rare disease which took over my body and rendered me completely, totally paralyzed. I could only communicate by blinking my eyes. I was 144 days in the hospital. I was in a hospital bed in my own home for 2 years. I couldn't move. I was in a wheelchair for 4 years. I had braces on both my legs, from my hips to my ankles. That was progress. Thank God today I'm able to be vertical and ambulatory with the help of a 7-foot walking wand. So I'm a triped, not a biped. Can't walk up a stair by myself. Can't walk up a curb by myself. I have help 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. However, you hear my voice. Positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant. All because of one word: smile. Seeing miracles in life every day. Let me tell you, I'm privileged to speak to millions of people around the world through the internet on these podcasts and webinars and such like that. Recently, I did an in-person webinar here where I live in Henderson, Nevada. We had 1,127 people telling you a story about Barry Shore, telling about seeing miracles in life every day. Some people raise and say, hey, Barry Shore, I've been up for hours already. Have you seen any miracles? And I asked them, are you here? Can you hear? Can you stand still? I can't do that. Can you walk? I can barely do that. Do you have water, drink? Do you have food? Do you have a place to sleep? Do you have family, your friends? Every single one of those is a miracle. And what's the proof? 1 million people didn't get out of bed this morning. You know why? They died. By definition, if you're watching or listening, you didn't. Therefore, you have an obligation to live life to the full, exuberantly. I got to tell you, my 8-year-old niece comes over to me a few weeks ago. She says, Uncle Barry, can we still smile? S-M-I-E-L. So I thought about it. Smile sounds the same. Why not? I asked her how come. She has, and it was stand for seeing miracles in everyday life. Out of an 8-year-old. What was she doing? She was creating the kind of world she wants to live in. Now, CREATE is a fabulous acronym. It stands for causing rethinking. Rethinking, you're going to learn about this, enabling all to excel. I got to tell you, I'm just so privileged that Christopher is joining us today. However, I got to warn him and warn you, new people. I do use a lot of 4-letter words. I even use the 4-letter FU word because of the shock value and it's fun. Now, of course, the 4-letter words that we use, because we live in the world of the positive, purposeful, powerful, and pleasant, are love, life, hope, play, free, gift, swim. And the 4-letter FU word is fun. Fun, that's right. F-U, capital N, capital N. So after the show, you see your family and friends, you have a twinkle in your eye, smile on your face, point your finger and say, F-U, everybody. Remember to add right away, capital N, capital N. They say, where'd you get that? So I listened to Barry Shore. You got their attention. Now you can share with them grace, redemption. Before we bring on Christopher, I'm going to urge everybody, use the 2 most powerful words in the English language 3 times a day from now, the rest of your life. And the result is you'll be happier, healthier, and wealthier. These 2 words are thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks stands for to harmonize and nurture kindness. KIND is a fabulous acronym. It stands for keep inspiring noble deeds. Nobody that I want to share with you that inspires noble deeds. They're wonderful, amazing. Christopher G. Smith. Christopher, please say hello to 527,911 people around the world.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
He is low-key, but you wait till you hear the story. Now, we know everybody has a story. Christopher was possessed by a story, and it made a difference. So, Christopher, if I tell everybody all the things that you've accomplished in your short life thus far, it would take the rest of the show. I'm going to highlight 3 things. Number 1, Broadway. Yes, he produced one of the greatest shows, musicals, in Broadway history. And you're going to hear about it a little bit more. Number 2, he was a police officer. Well, how do they go together? Well, you'll understand. Number 3, what I like most, he plays musical instruments. He's married and has kids that play musical instruments with him. So he's an all-around great guy. That's what the G stands for. Great guy. Christopher Great Guy Smith. So without further ado, Mr. Smith, let's just jump in and talk about something that is part and parcel of your vocabulary. And it's really 2 words made of a 1 word. I'm possible. However, the world tends to spell it in a different way. They leave out the apostrophe and they pronounce it impossible. So tell us, Christopher G. Smith, what does it mean to be I'm possible?
Well, look, first I have a confession to make to you, and that is that most of my life I was not joyful. Most of my life I was, overwrought, tight, putting a lot of pressure. I was diagnosed with chronic anxiety at the age of 7. And it affected my whole life. I was a child of divorce, and my stepfather had unalived himself. And it was just an environment that just made me constantly looking for how I was going to overcome this bad planet. And I went into police work because I wanted to make a difference. One of the things they don't tell you in police work is by the time you get there, the damage is done. And I kept feeling this yearning. I'd always been creative. I could write music, but only, little things, folk songs and stuff. And then one day I came across a story of a guy, a slave trader, who turned his back on the slave trade, became one of the world's first whistleblowers, basically started the end of the slave trade, and wrote the world's most loved song, Amazing Grace.
Okay, wait a minute. Let's unpack a few things here, because
Sure.
in the past 3 minutes, you have astounded people around the world. And again, we have people listening from Baluchistan, from the Congo, from Argentina, from Iran, and obviously the United States and such. So let's unpack. You had, well, for want of a better term, a challenging childhood, which, by the way, a lot of kids do. Even in the most loving households, sometimes kids feel there's a challenging situation. However, you really did. And you had this chronic awareness of worry and fear and such like that. And when you chose to go into police work, you realize something you just told us. By the time you get there, the damage is done.
Yeah.
So part of what Christopher was looking for was, how do I forestall the damage? How do we do something so that damage does not result? Is that fair to say?
Yes. And I was not looking for this particular thing. But as soon as I saw the story, I went home to my wife and I said, honey, this is a Broadway show. And she was like, okay. And
by the way, let's put it in perspective. What year are we talking about?
That was 1997.
Okay. So there's a very famous Broadway show about an interesting man, specifically in America, named Hamilton, that's called Hamilton.
Yep.
Now that came along 25 years later. Maybe 20 years later. So a Broadway show about a particular figure in history is not what you call, gee, that's going to do well, Christopher. Yeah, let's do that and invest all our time and money and effort. It's not tradition. You were working with another song, redemption. What was it? First of all, who is this figure? Where did he live? And tell us a little about him.
Yeah, his name is John Newton, and he lived in the 1740s. He had a terrible relationship with his dad. His dad was in the slave trade. He went into the slave trade. He quit school, got impressed into the English Navy, and just had a terrible, fraught life. He nearly died many times. And after he himself had actually been enslaved, he was enslaved by an African warrior princess. He was on the ship back to England, and he encountered a huge storm. And after, more than a decade of running from God and hating God, he finally cried out for mercy. That one moment changed our lives, all of our lives. Because
I want to ask you a question that's been burning with me ever since I knew we were going to do this. And I have a passion for history, so I knew something about the man, the process, and what he accomplished.
Yeah.
We're talking 1740s. The world was involved in the slave trade. It was not only legal, it was something that every country was involved in. White slave traders, black slave traders, as you mentioned, Muslims had been in the slave trade for centuries. It was a business, a worldwide large business. So this particular fellow, Mr. Newton, how was he enslaved? What happened?
He was just off the coast of Africa, and he landed in the wrong place. And this African warrior princess just took him and treated him like a slave, and he nearly starved. He caught malaria, or we think it was malaria, and he had a terrible existence. He got a front row seat as to what it means to be enslaved. Now, it wasn't nearly as bad for John Newton as it was for the people that, were sent off to the Caribbean. That was a life and death sentence. So, but he got this little preview of it. And then when he realized that God was going to let him live, him of all people, and in the song he says, that saved a wretch like me. And he
Okay, one moment. I want to understand. He was enslaved by the African group, the tribe, etc. Treated as he was a slave. How did he become unslaved? What happened? Did the English come along and knock on the door and say, "Hey, we want all your Englishmen"?
Yeah, an Englishman did come and do that. In our show, in the musical, and musicals always take liberties. We actually have his father come and
that was a good touch.
In that.
Okay, so he was literally redeemed from slavery. And as you said, he did not have to endure what African slaves who were sent to the Caribbean, and it was really sent there to work to death.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to work until you die. You may have an existence of 10 years, 15, whatever it is that the slavers could get out of you because you're working in a backbreaking plantation. I presume it was sugarcane in those days or something like that. Right. So here now, Mr. Newton, again in the Broadway production, is redeemed by his father, which, as I said, is a very nice touch. I think that may have been a little bit, certainly it's poetic license, but it's also talks about you in your own life. So we'll leave that aside. So now Mr. Newton is redeemed. They paid the African prince, and he's brought back to England. On the way back to England is when the storm happens, or that happens later?
The storm was happening there. And in our show, we condense some things, but he is on the way back. There's the girl that he loves. And, he has to get back, and he encounters this tremendous storm. The storm was so bad, he had to tie himself to the mast of the ship and be swept overboard. And in that moment, when he was sure he was going to die, he finally cried out to God for mercy. And when he did that, over the days and months and years after that, his eyes were opened to what he had been doing and what the country had been doing. And over time, he turned his back on the slave trade and actually wrote a book that inspired the beginning of the abolitionist movement. Okay. And it worked. The slave trade did end during his lifetime.
Oh, I didn't know this. So he was an inspiration for Mr. Wilbur, who I believe was the person who took the bull by the horns and said to English Parliament, "This is wrong." Am I right? I mean,
what Newton said, and Newton was his pastor. Wilberforce was at John Newton's church. John Newton becomes a pastor.
Oh, wait. This is so wonderful. Again, people around the world, I'm going to mention something, then we're going to go to a quick break.
Sure.
We talk about this, Christopher, that everybody in the world wants to come to America. And I say to them, you don't have to live here. What you really want is an American mindset, American mindset of freedom, opportunity, the ability to have a wretch saved like me. So we're going to come right back after this brief message. Don't go away. We're only beginning to talk about grace, amazing grace. Be right back. Don't go away.
Hey, quick pause. If something you just heard made you stop and think, don't let that moment pass. Because that shift, that awareness, is the doorway to real joy. Barry Shore has put together a free ebook with simple, powerful strategies to help you live in joy every day. Go to barryshore.com and download your free copy now, because one small shift can change everything.
Good day. Beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Maybe you're good-looking. You're always looking for the good. Our cup runneth over with good. His name is Christopher G. Smith, and he's telling us not just the story, because it's almost like he's making it up, the reality of a man who went mad, means he's making a difference, who had himself tied to the mast of a ship during a great storm, and that storm produced eyes wide open and grace upon him.
Mhm.
And here's a man who was in the slave trade. I'm going to make it almost more contemporary in the situation, as if he was in the drug trade, or even worse these days, the traffic in sex and children. He was deeply involved, and realized it's evil, and that evil can't just be walked away from. It must be confronted. Is that fair to say, Christopher?
Yeah, definitely. And when I found this story, of course, I went through my own making a difference moment, because I knew that this had to be out there. We had to hear this, because people, no matter where they are, no matter when it is, they want to be loved in spite of their faults. They want to be able to make a difference. And I said to my wife, I said, well, look, I've never been paid to write anything except accident reports. I have no professional experience. I have no training. I don't know anybody in the industry, and I have no money.
Wait a minute. You have all of the qualifications.
Exactly. Other than that, it was great. And so my wife, who has been my best friend since prom night, you'll see there's prom night.
Wait a minute. We need to delve into this a little more. First of all, I'm married 48 years.
Yeah.
You're married 33 years. I have a special place in my heart for people who were, for want of a better term, high school sweethearts.
Yeah.
To me, it is still a unique American experience.
Yeah.
So I'd like you to, first of all, what is your wife's name? And
Alana.
just tell us.
Alana, Alana. And the interesting thing about it was, I was a ringer. I was brought in as the ringer prom date, and we hit it off. We were tremendous friends. I wanted to date her because she was gorgeous, and I was me, and she wasn't interested. She said she wanted to be friends, and I was very hurt by that, and I said no. And then I sort of disappeared for a week or two. And then I came back and I said, okay, you know what? No, I do want to be friends. And I went through more than 3 years of being best friends with a person that I was in love with. And how was I going to deal with that? And then she started dating my best friend, which of course made it even worse. And I went off and I got engaged. And that didn't work out. And then after that, we started talking again as friends. And now that I had gained in maturity and she kind of knew what she wanted and what she didn't want, then we started dating, and we were married a little more than a year after that.
Oh, it's a beautiful story. And it works well with what you're going to share with us, because as you mentioned, you had all the qualifications. You didn't know what to do. You had no experience. You'd never done this before. Okay. It's almost like Steve Jobs saying, we're going to create the greatest computer the world has ever seen. I have no idea what we're going to do, but we're going to do it. Okay. Right. And then, again, that's the American mindset. But we're dealing now, let's take a look. Even when you decided, here you are as a constable. Some people can hear that word. In where you are in the state of Pennsylvania, people, especially in the smaller places, are constables, not police officers per se. You had a job. It was a good job because you were doing good work. As you said, it's always coming. when it's too late. And you made a decision that you're going to leave your profession, unless you did it part-time and you wrote part-time. Maybe you did both.
Yeah, I did do that. I was a police officer also. I'd done constable, I'd been a private investigator, and then I became an actual police officer, a patrolman. So when I said to Alana, look, we knew that if anyone was going to do this, it had to be me. We really were afraid that the Broadway mindset, which is very sensationalistic and very profit driven, wouldn't really be able to do this. And she said, well, you do it. And of course, I came out with a list of negatives and how I couldn't do it. And then she said, well, when you talk to the kids at church, you always say we shouldn't put God in a box. And to do far more than we ever thought or imagined. And yes, I do say that. And then
wait a minute. Your wife said, honey, I want you to eat your own words.
Right, exactly. How helpful is that? And then she said the two words that really changed my life and a lot of other people's lives. She said, so prove it. And
let's do it again. So prove it. God is not in a box. There is no limit. And by the way, you're dealing with not just a story of Mr. Newton. You're dealing with something that really was plate tectonics. It shifted the entire mindset of the world, because here you had the greatest naval force in the world, the largest empire in the world, making a conscious decision to forego one of its largest profit centers.
Yeah.
Because of God.
Yeah. Yeah. And it would be like deciding to not use oil at all. And they thought it was a foreign thing. They thought it was the enemy. They thought it was French trying to undermine them. So it was very dangerous for people to be abolitionists at that time. And one of our subplots it's sort of a loose parallel of the book of Esther, because the woman that loves John Newton also hates the slave trade. And she sort of gets drawn into this espionage subplot where she actually winds up undermining the slave trade on her own when Newton is gone. And that's a fictional part of the story. But I really wanted to honor all those people who took tremendous risks at that time and all the way through to the American Civil War and beyond.
People are on the edge of their seats, leaning in. I urge people all the time, don't write anything down. It's all in the show notes. The reason we record this is also so you can listen again at your own speed. And the winners in life will listen a second time. The people who will be the ones who change the world will listen a third time. Okay, so here we have one of the most well-known, and for reason, songs, as it were, words. It's actually poetry set to music, which is what a song is, poetry set to music, with this great word that you use as an acronym for enabling people to grow and not be afraid with their ideas. So let's talk about that. The song, of course, is Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Oh, I'm crying just thinking about it, Christopher.
A good voice. I should have hired you.
What is grace?
Well, grace literally is any gift which you cannot deserve and you cannot pay back. That's what grace is in the big picture. Anytime you do something for someone and they don't deserve it and they can't pay you back, you just did grace. And grace has become a much bigger idea than it originally was. I mean, most people, when they say grace, we think of saying grace, like we're getting ready for a meal. But grace is just a recognition that we don't deserve the good things that happen to us. We are recipients. And part of the journey that I took for those 19 years was really understanding what grace was. And I tried to put it into a package that would make me move forward, that would help other people move forward. And that's why I have what's called a grace mindset, which is just gratitude, reconciliation, accountability, compassion, and encouragement. GRACE. This is all on my website. GRACE.
Right. So again, everything's in the show notes. Don't write it down because we're going to do a deeper dive right now. I would like, with your permission, to tell people that the journey for you to, as your wife so eloquently put it with the two words, so prove it. Okay. It didn't happen. Honey, I did it 3 weeks later, a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years. You said 19 years. What does that mean, Christopher? Does that mean that you were possessed for 19 years? Does it mean that it took you 14 years to write it and 5 years to sell it, to be able to get it onto stage? How do you do this that you can get the money, the people, the production, because it has to all come together? And making any production, I don't care if you're doing a play one night for the church, it takes a lot of time and effort. Here you're talking about a Broadway musical.
Yeah. And I didn't know anything about making Broadway musicals. And one of the things I didn't understand is that very rarely does the person who writes the music also write the lyrics and also write what we call the libretto, which is the story. I had no idea. So I spent 10 years doing all three jobs. This makes Broadway people extremely nervous. They just can't believe that any one person could do it. But I was either naive enough not to know, or I believed enough to try. And then after those 10 years, what really set us on the road to Broadway, I was working with a gentleman. I was teaching him guitar. And at the end of the lesson, he said, well, what are you going to do for the rest of the day? I said, I think I'll write my musical. And he said, oh, yeah, write musical. I said, no, seriously. I'm writing a musical called Amazing Grace, and it's about John Newton, the man who wrote Amazing Grace. I said, do you know that story? He didn't. He didn't know the story. So I told him, and I sang some of the songs. And then he looked at me, got kind of a serious look on his face, and he says, Amazing Grace is my favorite song in the world. And then he said this, can you put this in a format I can take to other people? Because if you do, I'll take you to everybody I know. And he was a business person. He was a marketing guy. And he was true to his word. So what we did was we started going together, living room, backyard patios. One time we were in the bank president's office, and we would go in and I would tell the story and I would sing some of the songs, and then I'd ask them for $100,000.
How much?
100. Well, some people 100, some people less. But we would just go from place to place. One time we were in the bank president's office, and I was asking him for his money, not for the bank's money. So I'm in there doing this presentation. The walls in this place don't go up to the top. So all the little ladies out in the office can hear me, and I never can repay. And they think, what is going on? And I went through this whole spiel, and then I asked him for $100,000. And he did not give us $100,000. He gave us $200,000.
Okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute. That's the power. Wait a minute. I want everybody to understand something. I'm crying right now. Why? First of all, because I love the story. Second of all, I love Christopher. Third of all, when you hear the introduction, people know the story. Barry Shore was standing up in the morning and paralyzed in the evening for years. So in the hospital, Christopher,
Hmm.
from my bed. Now, by the time, let's say, I was in the hospital 4.5 months, by the time the third, fourth month came, I was able to speak. For the first few months, I couldn't be able to speak.
Hmm.
I had at least one, like there were actually three altogether, at least one. The head nurse on that particular floor would come in, she would hold my hand, and she would start singing. What did she sing? Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
And I harmonized with her.
Yeah.
And we eventually, before I got allowed, they put me in the wheelchair and moved me around. I was able to do it with three other people.
Wow. Wow.
Because I experienced the reality. Dear
Yeah.
God, look what you've done. Not to me. I had no idea if I ever move again. I had no idea that years later I'd be swimming 2 miles a day, 6 days a week, or that I have a mission that was downloaded directly from the good Lord. And my
Yeah.
mission, Christopher, is to give $1 billion to charity without costing any giver a penny. That's another story. However,
Yeah.
it's this direct out. So you're in the office of a human being who is touched directly by the idea, the songs,
Mhm.
the understanding. And he says, if it's money that you want, I want to give.
Yeah. We had other people, other gentlemen and women who told us that they felt that God had given them money specifically uh, for this. In fact, that jacket that I keep up there, I always keep that where I can see it, because one of our investors, a lot of people don't realize this. If you went to Amazing Grace on Broadway, there was an older gentleman who stood out in front, and he like greeted everyone, and he would talk to them about grace, and he would talk to them about the show. And then when they came out, he would talk to them again, and he would answer questions. I think everybody thought this gentleman was like the greeter at the Walmart.
Right.
He put millions of dollars into Amazing Grace. And then after that, after the tour, after the album, his daughter called me a couple years later, and she said, listen, I just want to let you know, Dad has gotten Alzheimer's. And I said, yeah, I heard that. I'm so sorry. She said, well, look, he doesn't remember much of his life at all, but he wears his Amazing Grace team jacket every day. And I said, wow, that's fantastic. She said, well, it got ripped and he can't wear it anymore. And he's really upset about it. And I said, she said, is there another one? I said, I'm sorry. Those were unique. I mean, they were custom jackets. And I said, wait a minute. Well, hold on a second. I went in my closet. I'm going through, and I found mine. And I said, I've got one. And she said, no, that's yours. That's your memory and all that. I said, no, forget it. I'm coming over. Give me your address. So I went over, and he was there. His name's Alex. Or his name was Alex. And he didn't remember me at all. He had no idea who I was. And so he goes and gets this big, I guess it was a tray or something, and he puts it on the dining room table. We all sit down, him, me, and his daughter, and he starts showing me pictures. And they're pictures of the show. And he's like, this is John Newton. He was a slave trader, da-da-da-da-da. And then, these were the actors. Look, I'm actually in the pictures. He has no idea. He has no idea who I am. And as he went on and told me this story, I realized in his mind, he's still there on 41st. Right. He's still doing the job. And here I am sort of feeling sorry for myself after the show, sort of like the world has changed. The world doesn't want grace. What am I going to do? And I just sat there and I just felt so convicted that this man who's lost everything, he was a millionaire. He had cars, he had 3 planes, and he couldn't remember it. But he remembered Amazing Grace. He remembered what it did in his life and other people's lives. So at the end of the conversation, I got a paper bag, and I put it on the table, and I said, Alex, I just want to let you know, I found your jacket. And then I gave it to him, and he said thank you, and he put it on, and I never saw him again. That was it. And at the funeral, his daughter had a bag sitting next to her at the receiving line. And I walked up, and she gave it to me. She said, I had this washed. I just want you to know this made a huge difference in Dad's life toward the end. And I said, well, it made a huge difference in my life too. And that's always where I could see it. Even if I go on a trip, that comes with me, because I never want to forget that no matter how bad things get, no matter how much you think no one's listening, it's still the job. You still have to bring redemption everywhere you can go. And so that's what that jacket means to me, and it's what the whole experience means to me.
I'm going to reward everybody. We have another small segment on the other side of this break. You do not want to go away. This is truly wondrous. Be right back with more Amazing Grace.
Hey, quick pause. If something you just heard made you stop and think, don't let that moment pass. Because that shift, that awareness, is the doorway to real joy. Barry Shore has put together a free ebook with simple, powerful strategies to help you live in joy every day. Go to barryshore.com and download your free copy now, because one small shift can change everything.
Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. You're good-looking, so I was looking for and finding the good. You found good in abundance. It's amazing, isn't it? What one word, and when you break it into its component parts, as acronyms, because we love, remember, acronyms, can bring to the world, because every single being makes a difference in the world. We love mad people. By the hundreds of thousands, by the millions, because you're going to share with at least 5 people, touch millions of people. And grace, again, Christopher, if you'd be kind enough, obviously you were named appropriately Christopher G. Smith, and the G just, it has to be grace, right? So again, let's just go through the acronym and then just a little bit on one or two of the pieces that make a difference for you. So what is the acronym for grace?
My GRACE acronym, and there's plenty of other ways GRACE can be around. This is just the focus that I have and that helped me. The G is for gratitude. The R is for reconciliation, which is a fancy word for healing between relationships. And then there is accountability, taking responsibility for your own actions in the world. Compassion, we all think we know what compassion is, but real compassion costs something. And then there is encouragement, which I believe encouragement is the lowest cost, highest yield investment in the history of the world. It costs you almost nothing. But when you encourage someone from your school, your work, one of your kids, your spouse, who a lot of times we don't encourage, a lot of times because we don't think of it, those little moments change the courses of people's lives. And we know because we've heard of athletes who said, there was a coach who believed in me, or there's a famous person that said, my grandmother prayed for me every day and called me. And when someone sees something in you, you start to believe it. You start to say, you know what? If they're seeing something, there must be something there. And so even though encouragement is at the end of the grace mindfulness, I think...
Let's instead of saying at the end, let's use it as a ladder.
Yeah.
Because, and I'll tell you why, as an input from me, gratitude is the starting point for a human being. Unless and until someone recognizes with gratitude, I don't care if you believe in God or not. If you don't, that's your, in my humble opinion, it's your difficulty. However, to have gratitude that you're alive and to share that with other people. Gratitude is the starting point for human condition, human interaction, because then it can lead to that reconciliation,
Yeah.
like you call it, healing. Unless until you have gratitude, healing is not going to be possible.
And
And
people
they flow, you see. And this is why I love what you said. If encouragement is the top of the ladder or the staircase, I like that.
And a lot of people say to me, well, why are you so into grace? Why is grace such a big thing? And I say, because grace with a capital G is the only thing I've ever experienced that reliably heals relationships. Now, that's relationships between God and humanity, it's between individuals, but in the end, it's also the only thing that heals your relationship with yourself.
Oh, Christopher, we love you. There are three relationships in the world that exist all simultaneously. The relationship with the Creator, and again, I don't, if you believe or not, that's your issue. Relationship with the Creator, relationship with others, and especially those closest to you, which are the friction points in life, right? Let's be blunt. The friction points in life. So therefore, being graceful, living with gratitude in grace. And of course, the most important, in my humble opinion, is with oneself. Because unless and until oneself has good self-talk, then you cannot be what we call a cog, a channel of goodness, a child of God to anybody else. So let's go a couple of details. I want to ask you one question. You had people investing. You got to Broadway, not just off Broadway, not playing in Peoria, not playing in Philadelphia, which, by the way, all is very nice. It's great. Play Peoria, that's inside baseball stuff for people who are not in the theater or don't know or not live in America. And you're here on Broadway. I mean, Broadway, the Great White Way, right? And how many are we talking about? 2 performances, 10 performances?
117 performances on Broadway in 2015. And
wow.
And we toured the country. So we hit 52 major markets in the country in 1 year. And then we also played in Washington, D.C. for an entire year also. And then we recorded our album. So the Amazing Grace album is out there, and I'll put a link to it on my website. But it's all the music is out there on YouTube. You can get it for free now.
Again, it's all in the show notes. You must avail yourself of the opportunity, because the purpose of music is to be heard, listened to, internalize, utilize, leverage. One of the things we talk about is that with what we're discussing here, what we're experiencing here is what I like to call a shift in perspective. Now, I got to tell you something, Christopher. I've been working with people for more than 55 years, coaching and helping people, such like that. And when they come to me on paper, they look great. You start talking to them, and they somehow drop the F in shift, and the other stuff happens. You got to be effing careful with your F's. It's a small shift in perspective. Once you do that and you're locked onto grace, then you can internalize, utilize, and leverage the 6 most important words you'll ever learn, which are choice, not chance, determines your destiny. How you choose to respond in any given situation. Take John Newton. Okay, he could have been tied to the mast and not shipwrecked and not done anything. Well, thank God it didn't. He had to go deep to be able to explore and recognition, right? Recognize recognition. And then he becomes a pastor. And who's sitting in his church? Mr. Wilberforce, who became the force in the United Kingdom, the most powerful empire on the earth at the time, and said, there is right and there is wrong. We're going to not do the wrong. We're going to do the right. It's beautiful.
And let me give you just one small shift that really has helped me, and I want to get it out there. I call it the question mark method. When you are set before you have a making a difference moment, your brain is going to try and protect you. And it usually comes out with a word like impossible or one of those words.
Shift.
All I do is shift that. It's very hard because you'll start to freeze up. It feels like a declaration, like a verdict, like the case is closed. And all my years in police work told me you have to keep the case open. So what I do is when I see that word impossible, I just put a question mark behind it. Just take the exclamation point and bend it into a question mark so that impossible becomes impossible, never becomes never, and it changes the way you see the possibilities. Curiosity is the human superpower. The reason we are at the top of the food chain, we don't have the biggest teeth, we're not the fastest, our natural abilities are limited, but we are the most curious and we are the most creative. And when you get that, when you go into curiosity mode, you can change the entire way you deal with these impossible situations. Have you ever met someone? Let's think of something people are all afraid of: spiders. A lot of people are afraid of spiders or snakes. And then you meet somebody who is completely unafraid of snakes or completely unafraid of spiders, and you go, what's wrong with this person? It's almost always the person who's interested in snakes. The person that sort of asks questions about them and gets involved with them. There's something about curiosity that overcomes fear. And for me, having been diagnosed with chronic anxiety at 7, I've spent a lifetime trying to find the little techniques that will help me just get to the next positive step. So that's why I call that the question mark method. That's my question.
Christopher?
Website. It's on Christopher.
I created during the breaks, I created an acronym for your name.
Okay.
Would you like to hear it?
Sure.
So it's a little bit of a challenge because the long name, Christopher. CHRISTOPHER. Here we go, Christopher. Creating happiness, resilient inspiration, successfully transforming opportunity, purposely helping everyone redeem.
Wow. You just did that now?
Yes.
Nice. That's great. Thank you. I'm going to have to watch this again and do the show notes and copy that down.
It's in the show notes. I'll send it to you. So I'm loath to say the words we're going to say. We're coming to a close on our time together. I have 3 quick questions for you, Christopher. You ready?
Yeah.
Number 1, will you come back again?
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you. Number 2, Christopher G. Smith. You have only 80 seconds to answer this.
Okay.
What is your most fervent desire?
My most fervent desire is to touch people that I would otherwise never meet, to put something out there, whether it's music or doing a speech or visiting an organization, and touch people that I never would have met and not even know what influence or impact I had on them. That's why
we love him. And now, may I give you a hug in front of 531,911 people around the world?
Absolutely.
Let me tell you what HUG stands for. Heartfelt, unlimited giving. 1, 2, 3. Remember, you're listening to The Joy of Living with the humble host, Barry Shore, and amazing Christopher G. Smith. Now, this show, I have to make everybody aware, is not about Christopher, fabulous fellow that he is, or about Barry Shore. What a guy. It's about you. Y-O-U, you becoming the best you, because when you are the best you make the world a better place. Build more bridges of harmony, joy, happiness, peace, and love. And that's what this show is about. You tune in because of the three fundamentals of life. Number one, life has purpose, like you're talking here with Christopher. Number two, you find your purpose, you go mad, you make a difference. And number three, unlock the power and the secrets of everyday words and terms like WWW, what a wonderful world. Smile, seeing miracles in life every day. As my 8-year-old niece says, seeing miracles in everyday life. Create, causing rethinking, listen to Christopher, enabling all to excel, and saying thank you twice a day, 3 times a day. I'm 2 most powerful words in the world, 3 times a day. You'll be happier, healthier, and wealthier. Grace, gratitude, and reconciliation, accountability, compassion, and encouragement. And understand that joy is journey of you. That's what we're here for. So a blessing from Christopher and Barry. Go forth, live exuberantly, spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad. Go make a difference. Christopher, don't go away.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Joy of Living podcast. Now that's another step towards your healthier, happier, and wealthier life. Never hesitate to do good in the world, no matter what the situation. Join us for another upbeat discussion next time at barryshore.com. And be sure to leave a rating and subscribe to the show to get more conversations like this. And remember to share it with your family and friends too. See you on the next episode.